This is the sip it while it's hot motif, and we know that it's awesome to get that coffee or tea in the morning, especially from someone who cares about you, even if it's yourself. So get your supplies and we'll create this adorable painting. I'm going to start by doing the cup, and you can either add tiki and coconut together. I'm going to come along this side, or if you have the tiki and some black, like a darker brown, if you want to use that. I'm going to just go around the border on the left side here. I'm going to wipe my brush off with that extra pigment, and then I'm going to release some water over here and start touching that line before it dries, just to disperse it. That leaves the deposit at the edge, but then this nice blended line. So we'll do that down here as well, pushing that to the outside edge there. And we may come in here and kind of darken that up a little bit in a minute. Let's see. I'm just kind of adding a little bit to that since it's already started to dry a bit. That way I don't end up with too strong of a line. I can come in here and kind of erase that little place that I went outside the line and just tap it with my paper towel. Okay, so I'll do the same thing. I'll start with this color here, come across there, and then now blend that in. It just makes a nice little kind of a wet on wet look. And you'll get that pigment right at the edge. It'll get kind of nice and crispy looking on the one side and then nice and blended on the other. And while it's still kind of wet, you can push that pigment around wherever you like, and we'll add in a little bit of shadows in a bit. And I'm going to go and darken that up. And coming across here without getting my hand into my wet page, you can either wait for it to dry or just turn your paper. Now I'll do the same thing. I still had some pigment in my brush. It's wet, and now I'm moving that around. You can also come over here and make this wet on wet by being careful with your water not to get into your bow, moving it around here. And to make this cup look like it's actually rounded, you'll want to leave a little bit of white in that middle area right there. I'll probably do that here as well. So if you plan ahead enough, you won't paint in that area too much. And you can also take pigment away by applying your brush and taking some of that pigment away. And we can also create that highlight by adding a little more paint into these other areas at the side, giving it a look like there's a highlight in the middle. A little shadow under that bow there. And now you've kind of filled in your cup. You can make it whatever you would like as far as the color and shade. It could be very white and only putting a shadow around the outside and creating it in a gray. And so while that's drawing, we'll work on the top of our lid here. I've got, if you have this kit, you can mix ocean and hibiscus together to get a gray that would look something like this. Add a little more blue or orange and just kind of play with that. Or if you've got black, just create that into very light silvery gray. Just barely touching my brush. I'm going to leave a little bit of white around those edges there. and move that around. You can always try it out over here to make sure you've got that color just the way you want it before you apply it. You could do the same exact color to the cup as well if you wanted to. Going to add a little bit more pigment here. It's a little bit of a different tone. And I'm just playing around so you can kind of see. You can just pick one tone if you like. And now I'm going to add that under here a bit and a little bit more along this side to get somewhat of a shadow. This is still kind of wet, so you can see that it starts to just disperse into the already wet area, which is great. Same with over here. And put a little bit under our bow there. Okay. Put a darker shadow here, and maybe I'll go along with a little bit of this silver and just tap a line along there to make it look like that lid is hanging over a bit, and a little gray into here to make it more of a true shadow, and a little along here. Okay, so we've got our cup ready. I've got a few little errors here, but you can either go and loosen up that paint a bit and take it away with your paper towel, or you can just, because I know we're doing the pink, it's not really going to matter too much. So now I am going to take some of this Patea. You can use your red or pink that you have, and I'm going to do a nice strong line on this bow here. I'm only doing the bottom because it was wet up near there at the top. And now I've cleared my brush off of that paint, and I'm going to carefully come along here and start to activate that while it's still pretty wet, and start spreading that into my bow here. You can leave some white of your paper showing through. Looks like a little bit of a highlight where the light is hitting it. And it's okay if you get it into your other bow because it's going to be the same color. Kind of making sure to go back around that edge and catch that line so we don't see the line as well. And we'll do the same thing here. I'm trying to delineate these so that it gets more dimension. Otherwise, you could just go over the whole thing with pink. And I'm planning on just going in and filling in each of those hearts, so I'm okay painting them with pink. If you're changing your color, you'd have to kind of go around those, so you'd have to be a lot more careful. Now I am painting that a little bit darker. Let's grab this edge. You have to go very carefully with the tip of your brush and make sure that your cup is already dry down there so that you don't end up having a big giant mess. It would be fun to do a light pink cup, I think, too, but we don't want to do brown and pink together. And I think this is dry enough, and you've got to watch your hand. So that's why you would do this first after your cup is dry, but for the sake of time, I'm going to carefully go over that. Now I've cleared my brush and just barely kind of getting my bristles into that pigment and spreading it around. And you don't have to do every edge with that darker line. It's just a preference. I did 2 different versions. Even this over here is awful dark. I might pull some of that. I'll show you. See how I'm loosening that up? And I'm just kind of pulling some away to my paper towel. Since it was so strong over there, now I'm just moving some of that pigment around so it doesn't dry in funny places over here. And because that's so dark, I will add a little bit more to that edge just so that it looks balanced. Okay. And you can put wet on wet, which is just where you get that ribbon area wet, and then like we did with the cup, and then add your pigment to it. Test it out over here if you want. Then you add your pigment, move it around. And since this is so dark over here, I'm going to do the same thing. And actually, you can do it beforehand the way we did, or you can come back now and add some, clear my brush off. It's already starting to travel, and now I can pull that away. It will dry a little slower because it was already wet, so that might be more helpful to you. You can use that technique in lots of things, especially flower petals. Get this little blurry, subtle look here. I'm going to come in here and just kind of tap in a little bit of that gray that we used at the top up there. And now we just have this. So we'll want that to dry, and then we'll go in and put our little hearts in. So now we're ready to paint our hearts. They're teeny tiny. You'll want a stiff, small brush in order to do these. So I'm going to start left to right. I'm going to get a lot of paint in there and not a lot of water. So you want to pull from your pan where you don't have a lot of water. This brush has been used a lot, so it's kind of frayed. And I can put my hand down on my painting because it's dry. So just be aware of that. And paint these hearts here. You want to make sure your paint is, whoops, wow, I made a mess out of that, is nice and dry. And I'm making the heart a little larger than the line there because I wasn't very accurate. And you can always do like I was talking about earlier and just come back with a pencil and sort of make it a little bigger or sketchy if you really mess up. You can leave them as just little outlines. You could fill them in with a pen and make them cute little black hearts all over it. I have some new ribbon that has little black hearts. They're super cute. And you can also come in with a white gel pen and fill these in and make them white.